The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you. Or when you try to cage a lion, you shouldn't be surprised when he builds his own kingdom. Today, the French master is finally speaking the truth. Listen to his voice. He hasn't talked about aid or development. He is talking about the end of an era. He is watching Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso walk away from the table, and he knows they are never coming back to the ECOWAS bloc. But here is the real suspense. While ECOWAS tries to block Guinea and Chad from joining the revolution, the AES is opening its arms. The map of Africa is being redrawn. And for the first time in 140 years, the pens are in Africans' hands. To understand why ECOWAS is in a panic, we have to open the forbidden history books. In 1884, they treated our continent like a cake. They built organizations like ECOWAS not to unite us, but to manage us for Western interests. For decades, if a country wanted to trade, they had to go through the master's block. But the proverb says, the bird that flies off the branch doesn't look back at the cage. The AES, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are all in all have realized that ECOWAS has become a tool of neocolonialism. They quit in January 2025, and in February 2026, they are proving that they don't need the old bloc to survive. Here is where the suspense peaks. ECOWAS is terrified that the revolution is spreading. They are desperately trying to keep Guinea and Chad under their thumb, using sanctions and invitation to stop them from joining the AES. But look at the ground. Guinea has already opened its borders to Mali in a strategic partnership, defying the ECOWAS blockade. Chad is watching closely, seeing that the AES offers something ECOWAS never could, true military and economic sovereignty. The Frenchman in the video sees it clearly. The coastal bloc is grumbling while the Sahel is growing.
Coordinating, and the regional organizations supposed to prevent them can do nothing. In this analysis, I am going to show you why the three military coups in West Africa, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, do not simply represent a period of chaotic instability. They form a deliberate pattern. These three military governments are now coordinating their policy, their diplomatic stance, and potentially their security. Meanwhile, ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, the regional organization supposed to promote democracy and prevent coups, is proving to be completely powerless. It has not reversed any of these coups. Its sanctions are ignored. Its threats of military intervention are empty. And now, these three countries are openly discussing, formally leaving ECOWAS or creating a parallel structure. This is not chaos. It is the collapse of a regional order and the birth of a new power bloc. Let's start by understanding the sequence of the coups. Mali first. In August 2020, the army overthrows President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. The military, led by Colonel Assimi Goïta, takes power. ECOWAS protests, imposes sanctions, threatens intervention. Nothing changes. In May 2021, Goïta stages a second coup to consolidate his control. ECOWAS sanctions again. Still nothing. Mali gradually expels French forces and invites Wagner, the Russian contractors for security. Then Burkina Faso. In January 2022, the army overthrows President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore. Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba takes power. ECOWAS suspends sanctions. But in September 2022, another coup. Captain Ibrahim Traoré overthrows Damiba. So two coups in 1 year. ECOWAS condemns sanctions again. Result: nothing. Burkina Faso also expels the forces French and moves closer to Russia. Finally, Niger. In July 2023, the Presidential Guard, the military unit supposed to protect the president, stages the coup. General Abdurrahmane Chiani overthrows President Mohamed Bazoum. This time, ECOWAS reacts even more harshly. Heavy sanctions, threats of military intervention within weeks. The organization even sets a deadline. But this date passes. Nothing happens. Niger expels the French ambassador. Then the French troops. And begins security cooperation with Russia. 3 coups, 3 countries. 3 times, ECOWAS promises to act. 3 times, it completely fails. ECOWAS was created to prevent coups d'état. 3 have taken place. Can it reverse them? No, no. Do these sanctions work? No. These threats of intervention? Empty. What does a regional organization that can do nothing mean now? Let's look at what makes this situation different from a simple series of isolated coups. These 3 military governments are not competing. They coordinate. The signs are multiple and clear. First, the military meetings. The military leaders of the 3 countries travel regularly between Bamako, Ouagadougou and Niamey. These visits are not ceremonial. They are consultations on security, regional policy, the common stance against ECOWAS. Secondly, the coordinated public statements. When ECOWAS sanctions Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, immediately issues statements of solidarity. They condemn the sanctions as illegitimate and Western-inspired. They warn that any military intervention against Niger will be considered an aggression against themselves. This rhetorical coordination is not accidental. It signals a de facto alliance. Thirdly, discussions on a formal structure. The 3 countries speak openly about creating an alliance of Sahel states. This alliance would cover mutual security, economic cooperation, and potentially collective defense. It would be a direct alternative to ECOWAS, or at least an organized bloc within ECOWAS. That would challenge its authority. This coordination is not simply reactive, a defensive response to ECOWAS pressure. It is proactive. These 3 governments are deliberately building an alternative regional power structure, and they are doing so with the implicit support of Russia, which sees this coordination as favorable to its interests in the region. We have analyzed how France has been replaced by Russia in the Sahel on a military and security level. But this transformation was not only about military presence. It concerned the entire political and institutional order. ECOWAS was perceived as an extension of French influence, a mechanism through which France and the West maintained their control over the region via norms of good governance and democracy. The military coups reject not only the French military presence, but also this francophone institutional order. The collapse of ECOWAS as a credible institution reveals several structural weaknesses. Firstly, it has no real military capacity. Theoretically, ECOWAS has a standby force, troops that member states can deploy for interventions. In practice, this force only exists on paper. Members do not really contribute troops. Nigeria, by far the largest and most powerful member, has its own massive security problems. Boko Haram in the northeast, banditry in the northwest, separatist tensions in the south. It cannot and will not deploy tens of thousands of soldiers to overthrow military governments in the Sahel. Secondly, ECOWAS economic sanctions are weak. The 3 countries involved are among the poorest in the region. They are landlocked, their economies are already fragile. Additional sanctions cause suffering to the populations, but do not change the political calculations of the military juntas. Furthermore, Russia and China offer alternative economic support. Not massive, but enough for the regimes to survive. And informal trade continues across porous borders. So, ECOWAS sanctions are largely symbolic. Thirdly, ECOWAS has lost its legitimacy in the eyes of local populations in the 3 countries. The military coups were widely popular. Why? Because the democratic governments that they overthrew were perceived as corrupt, ineffective, and too close to France. The Sahelian populations live under the constant threat of jihadist terrorism. They see civilian governments failing to protect them. So, when the military promises to restore security and expel foreign forces, many citizens applaud ECOWAS by trying to defend the governments overthrown and to sanction the military, finds itself on the wrong side of public opinion. If three military governments form their own bloc, if ECOWAS cannot stop them, what prevents other countries, Chad, Guinea, and others from joining them? Do you think this movement will spread? It is noted that this domino effect issue is crucial, because if ECOWAS cannot overturn these three coups, what deters military leaders in other countries from trying the same thing? Chad already has a transitional military government, following the death of President Idriss Deby in 2021. His son, General Mahamat Deby, leads a transitional military council. Guinea experienced a coup in 2021. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya overthrew President Alpha Condé. These two countries could easily join an alliance of Sahel states if it becomes formalized, and even in countries that are currently stable, military leaders are watching closely. They see that coups in the Sahel have not resulted in any serious consequences. The juntas remain in power. They expel French forces. They secure Russian support. The populations back them. The ECOWAS is powerless, so the perceived cost of a coup is diminishing. And if a group of military in a neighboring country is discontent with the civilian government over corruption, due to security failures and perceived submission to the West, why wouldn't they also attempt a coup? This cost-benefit calculation has radically changed. Previously, a coup meant international isolation, paralyzing sanctions, and the possibility of regional military intervention. Now a coup signifies a temporary suspension of ECOWAS which, anyway, doesn't offer much. Just a few ineffective sanctions and, potentially, the support of Russia and China. For ambitious military leaders, it's an attractive calculation. Russia and China are deliberately filling the void left by the collapse of ECOWAS and the French withdrawal. Russia provides security. Wagner, now the Africa Corps, operates in the three countries. Its contractors offer what the local military wants: regime protection, counterinsurgency, and no democratic conditions. Russia also sells weapons that are cheaper and come with fewer bureaucratic complications than Western suppliers. China provides infrastructure and economic investment: roads, bridges, power plants, mining contracts for gold, uranium, and development loans. All of this without the governance conditionality that the West imposes. For the Sahelian military juntas, this Chinese model is ideal. They get the economic development. They need to legitimize their rule without having to hold elections or respect human rights. This Sino-Russian division of labor, Russia for security, China for the economy, is remarkably effective. It offers African governments a complete alternative to the Western model. And it is transforming the Sahel into a zone of lasting influence for Moscow and Beijing. This is not a temporary presence. It is a long-term strategic foothold. The security and mining contracts signed now will bind these countries to Russia and China for decades. We have analyzed how Africa has become the center of critical raw materials for the 21st century. The Sahel possesses precious resources: Nigers, uranium, malus, gold, and other minerals. France exploited these resources in a neo-colonial framework. Now that France has been expelled, Russia and China are taking its place. But, unlike France, they do not have the burden of colonial history. They arrive as partners rather than as former colonizers. This perceptual difference matters enormously in African public opinion. The future scenarios for ECOWAS and their Sahel depend on the organization's ability to regain credibility. The optimistic scenario: ECOWAS realizes that its current approach of sanctions and threats does not work. It adopts a more pragmatic strategy. It dialogues with the military juntas. It offers incentives for a gradual transition towards a civilian government. It stops conditioning its support on immediate elections and accepts longer transitions. In this scenario, the three countries remain in ECOWAS, but with a redefined relationship. The organization survives by adapting the probable scenario. ECOWAS continues its current posture, but without the means to enforce it. The three Sahelian countries remain formally suspended, but ignore ECOWAS. They create their alliance of Sahel states as a parallel structure. This alliance manages security, economic cooperation, without reference to ECOWAS. Other countries, Chad, Guinea, gradually join this alliance. ECOWAS becomes an empty shell. It exists institutionally, but no longer has real influence over a significant portion of its members. The pessimistic scenario. The three countries formally leave ECOWAS. This departure creates a precedent. Other members dissatisfied, either because they also want to stage coups, or because they consider the organization dysfunctional, follow suit. ECOWAS fragments. West Africa loses its main regional integration mechanism. Trade, the movement of people. Security cooperation. Everything that ECOWAS facilitated is deteriorating. The region is entering a period of fragmentation and competition rather than integration. When a regional order collapses, who fills the void? We already know: Russia for security, China for the economy. It is not chaos. It is a predictable replacement. Share your thoughts in the comments. This logic of replacement is important to understand because it refutes the Western narrative according to which the Sahelian coups create chaos and instability. In reality, it creates a new order, different from the previous Francophone order, but an order nonetheless. This order relies on the military for internal control, Russia for external security, and China for economic development. It is an authoritarian and transactional model, rather than democratic and values-based. But it is stable in its own logic. Do the Sahelian populations prefer this model? Many seem to think so, at least for now. They are tired of unfulfilled democratic promises. They want security against terrorism. They feel the need for national dignity, which means breaking free from the perceived domination of France. If the military juntas can provide security and dignity, even at the cost of political freedom, a significant part of the population accepts it. This acceptance is not permanent. If the juntas fail to improve security or the economy, they too will face discontent. But for now, they enjoy political capital. The collapse of ECOWAS has implications beyond the Sahel. It reveals the fragility of regional African institutions built after independence. These institutions were often modeled on Western concepts of integration. They promise democracy, development, peace. But many have not kept these promises. So when they are tested by coups, crises, conflicts, they collapse quickly. The African Union itself, the continental organization, faces similar challenges. It cannot resolve major conflicts. It cannot enforce its decisions. It is becoming increasingly symbolic.
Why is the Frenchman so shocked? Because of you? The youth of 2026 are not like the youth of 1960. You are social media to translate the master's secrets and to spread the fire of the AES revolution. The youth in Conakry and Bamako are all speaking the same language now. They are telling ECOWAS, your sanctions are just paper. Our unity is our iron. The digital warriors of the AES are the reason the French man is explaining himself. He knows the narrative is no longer controlled by Paris. It's controlled by the youth of Africa. The Frenchman's speech is a white flag of surrender. He is the ghost of the past, and the AES is the engine of the future. To many on the latest Dojin one, this is your victory. This is your history. The sermons is dead. The block is broken. Africa is standing and the world is watching in awe. Like, share and spread this fire. Africa mama, Africa oye. The lion is finally home. This is amazing. And we are seeing a lot of exposés about the ECOWAS bloc. They are doing everything possible to make sure we do not have numbers. Like the man rightfully said, this time round it isn't the youth of Africa that are saying, it is their masters that are exposing ECOWAS big time to the whole world. Like he said, it is ECOWAS that is blocking Chad and Guinea-Conakry from joining the alliance of AES because they still do not want us to fight for the total liberation. If truly we are ready to fight for the total liberation of the African, this would have been the time that all of us in Africa will unite to fight the common enemy, the one that is chasing the African. But no, we are seeing sanctions. But now we are telling these people, we are no longer going to allow you to divide us anymore. Mali, Bamako, Accra, Ghana, Nigeria, Abuja, we are all one people, regardless of what these our leaders say. And that is why we need, as the youth, to fight. Like Nkrumah said, we are the future leaders. And if Africa will be saved, it is you, the youth, and not the old men. These are old leaders. Cannot get us the unity that we need. And that was why Nkrumah said, we should arise. The youth of Ghana, the youth of Africa, arise. We have slept for so long. We have bought into the narrative of these our leaders for so long. We need to break free from political messages, because with these political tones, we are only praising the same person that is keeping the African divided. Now these people don't come to Africa with aid lecture. They are seeing the revolution. They are telling the whole world, this is no longer the Africa you used to know. They are awoken. They are fighting for the total liberation. And that is why we need to be very careful about the news of today. He who controls the news controls the mind. And we don't have to allow ourselves for the second slavery. We need to fight together for the unity of Africa. And that we can only do it when we are mentally free from slavery. Like the news that broke up about IMF deal with Captain Ibrahim Traore, that we believe that Captain Ibrahim Traore says one thing like the politicians and act differently. And the second one is the deal that he signed with the United States of America. They only told you about the 147, but they never went ahead to tell you Burkina Faso is the one in charge of this project with 107 million. US is just contributing just 40 million. And the youth are losing trust in Captain Ibrahim Traore. One thing that I will plead with my brothers and sisters, that whenever this news of this sort pop up, we should take our time, dig deeper to bring out the truth. If we don't unite now, control the narrative now, and we allow them to use their own weapons against us, I wonder if we can ever get to our destination. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Europe and in France.